So I was actually having a completely unrelated conversation to this with somebody at the store this week about, ironically, Bolt Action and Conflict 47, which has nothing to do with Games Workshop. But it actually reminded me, and we were actually chatting about how the launch for Conflict 47 is blowing away their Bolt Action sales like immediately right off the gate. And I was kind of like, well, obvious. Like, I was like, sort of like, yeah, obviously. And that kind of got me thinking about Warhammer 40,000 and why it's been so, become basically the preeminent miniatures game, why it was so successful, why, in the late 80s, early 90s, Games Workshop couldn't figure out, almost like they were like creating a problem that wasn't a problem, where like they're like, we need to get Warhammer Fantasy to boost to the point where it's making as much money as 40K, because like 40K, it's tripling it, it's 5-upping it, it's 10xing it, and then it just kept running basically away from it in terms of sales, and basically, the company eventually just becomes like a 40K company, right? And to their credit, Games Workshop never let that happen. They never fully moved into like, all the money's made here, so we're going to put all of our effort into here. Sure. They've never done that, which is like, wow, that's good for them.
That's true.
But does a smaller business like Warlord Games, who's going to see this game blow up, do they start to do that, put more resources into a game that's going to make them more money, because quite frankly they need it, right? Well,
ouch.
I need it too. We're small businesses. They're a lot bigger than us.
You said I'm the mean one. People think I'm the...
That wasn't mean. You don't think they need money? Everybody needs money. They're not Games Workshop.
You called them small.
Oh my god.
I'm a small business.
Relative. Okay. Staying on track, folks. Staying on track. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about why I think that analogy kind of works well in explaining why 40K is as big as it is, or why it's so much bigger than other games. Fundamentally, I think it starts with the fact that if you look at fantasy games like, Warhammer Fantasy Battles that came first, even like a game like, it's obviously not a fantasy game, Bolt Action, which is based on real, but the fantasy games were made essentially like, and Tolkien, even his stuff, was almost like putting like a filter over the real world, and like redrawing things, but using like existing kind of like tropes and where people live and stuff like that, and writing new cultures and things into them, but borrowing a lot from regions and stuff like that. Like in a lot of ways, like in the old world, like you had humans living in similar regions that they live right now.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
the world is just like a alternate real world, sure. Yeah.
And of course, the British are like the High Elves or whatever. Of course, they. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Hey, I guess if you write the game, you get to pick who you are or whatever. So.
Yep.
No, I mean, like, at least they had the foresight to be like, yeah, we're a dying empire or whatever, and it's like, But anyway, I think where am I going with this? So I think the problem with worlds like that is, despite them being worlds, they actually are quite small, and generally a lot of the kind of like stories are kind of already told and written, right?
Yeah.
So like you look at like your factions, like, oh yeah, I love my High Elves. Okay, these are all the Phoenix Kings that have. These are all the provinces that the High Elves have. This is where everybody lives on the continent. This is all the armies, and this is what they do. And you're like, okay, it's a little harder for me now to be like, I'm going to make up my own story of these characters. And it's like, yeah, you can do that still, but it doesn't rhyme with the existing lore. You almost have to like break away from it to do it, right?
Yeah.
What really, I think, struck people with like Warhammer 40,000 and games like it, and you can, like I said, you can kind of make the same analogy to like Conflict 47 to Bolt Action, right? Whereas now you have a world that is almost like roughed in. You have these players, and you know some of the things about them. But there's so much unknown. Like the amount of unknown is bigger than the amount of known.
Yeah, I think you just essentially have kind of probably explained why sci-fi in general seems to be, or at least in the last, well, I don't know, many decades lately, has been very popular, because it's a more of a what if than a you have to, like you said, you can only rough it in, and there's a lot of stuff you have to make up, and enables people to build on. Whereas, like, you know, the fantasy, like you said, is very tied to actual human, like, historical things. So is less the playground. The sandbox feels smaller and tighter. Usually, it's not always the case, but you just seems to be there's just more room to do whatever.
And they kind of like brilliant. That it was like intentionally or not, but like maybe they stumbled into this. Essentially, is the idea that like they gave you like, oh, these are Space Marines. These are the protagonist, you know, in the story, even though they're not good dudes or whatever. They're the goodest dudes we have, I suppose. And they're like, yeah, this is what a bunch of them look like. But there's so many variants of these that like we're not going to show all of them to you. And like that was also brilliant because then you could be like, oh, I can like paint these pink and teal, and these are the purple dragoons or something, and now I can make my own.
Yeah, I think because they made the world, or in this case, it's like the universe so large, and the sandbox is so vast that you can't really, like, they themselves can't fill it. Like, you're like, just, I mean, you can. There's people that read all the books, I guess, but it's like so hard to be like, no, I'm the definitive 40K expert.
Yeah.
Because it's evolving so often that you just can't, you know, like, think of how many people are like, you know, triggered by Rings of Power or something because it doesn't follow. They're like, no, that's not what it was that's not what happened historically in that world, you know. Whereas in 40K, it's like you get to play with time and space and the warp and, you know, the web, all these things that it really makes it so, it makes it so open-ended that you can't like just say freeze it in place and this is it and that's forever. So I think that's, and the Conflict 47 in this case will have the same idea because it's like, you know, it's its own thing now. Like, so I feel like that's a massive
and even like
part.
It even makes you feel like, even if you're playing like Blood Angels, for example, or like one of the, you know, common or popular factions that have a lot of stuff written about them, right? There's novels and there's countless codexes where they've written in the stories. There's still a lot of ambiguous stuff that's like left open. So like, you know, oh yeah, no, we know who the chapter master is. We know who this, you know, they're your chief librarian guy. We know a famous dreadnought or two, and we know the Death Company guy. But then there's like 10 more companies who we don't know much about, you know. And so there's enough, you know, kind of room in there for people to go in and be like, oh, this is my Blood Angel army. This is
sure.
And maybe Mephiston shows up once in a while or whatever.
Yeah,
but, you know.
Yeah, no, it's massive. It's a massive part of, for sure. People, I mean, think of, there's so many people that come through the shop and they're like, you can extend this to lots of wargames, but they're like, they are, you know, career X faction player. You know, they're like, I play this, or I love these guys, and I'm, you know, tied to this. It's like kind of funny how that, and they don't get sick of it. They just can keep appending and adding, and Games Workshop can invent stuff. And
I think we are seeing what you saw and have seen and are seeing with Age of Sigmar is proof that I think we're onto something there, because they basically had to turn their fantasy world into a science fiction world. Yeah. In a lot of ways, right? In order to add that ambiguity back. Add in the ability, like you said, to create and evolve and develop, and kind of like even just as a company, give themselves a place to go.
You know what's funny though about, I like that you brought that up, is on one hand, absolutely, and you could argue that their early editions were very successful because of all the newness, but they've focused so much on nostalgia in the last cycle or two, which did well for sales, don't get me wrong. Yes. So lots of vampire counts and lizard men.
Oh yeah.
And redone Skavens and stuff like that. But they've stopped doing, you know, wacky AOS things. They stopped Caradron overloading and
we haven't seen. What was the last like kooky new army we saw?
Ideneth Deepkinning. I mean,
like
probably the Deepkin or the Caradrons. Like there was a period where we had like there's a little moment where we were getting like it was like this is brand new. We haven't seen this before. This is brand new. We haven't seen this before. You know? They've kind of stopped doing that.
They did go a bit more safe than the last
They've gone very
number
safe.
of years, yeah.
And I would argue that maybe that has could have stifled their growth a little bit because, even though the game's 10 years old and you're supposed to have all this, people are supposed to be very familiar with, what's going on. For whatever reason, they're not. I'm trying to think of, what was 40K like in the early days. It probably just had a more captivating story, the way they wrote it. I mean, AOS does get novels and there's stuff going on, but it just doesn't seem to have the same grip or the same ability. Despite it going multi-dimensional, universal, whatever. But at least when they were making new factions, that was enticing to read because you're like, I wonder because now I'm getting little glimpses into something new. Whereas when it's a redo, I'm automatically being like, it's just do I really care about, the models? I'm just my brain automatically just associates it with the old.
It does rely a lot on, like you said, the nostalgia being there, right? So it's probably primarily selling to people that have been collecting for a long time.
Yeah.
And whereas the old path with AOS, which you could argue was really effective in the beginning, was just attracting new players.
I was more interested in what was going on in the story when there was new stuff. So when...
Yeah. For sure.
When the Daughters of Cain and Marathi show up, then you're like, I want to know more. I want to read about the story there, or I guess...
Broken Realms was probably the last point at which I really cared about the story, because that was a really cool...
Yeah. You had stuff going on there. Yeah. There's
Crow,
big events.
Kragnos, Teclis. There's a whole bunch of awesome stuff happening at that point.
Since then, it's gotten kind of flat.
Got a little stale, boys. It's a little stale, boys.
How many chambers can we open again? And
I think let's not hit a chamber button again. Let's get some.
Yeah.
I know this is people are like, oh, they're never going to not put Space Marines in the starter set. No, they should never not put Space Marines in the starter set. And there's good data to back that up.
Correct.
I think we can experience. I'm going to make the comparison to fantasy. Warhammer Fantasy Battles, we had eight starter. Well, maybe first edition didn't have one, but third edition was the first starter box, something like that. Where they did a plastic 2-side starter box, 6 versions of starter boxes, and very few things showed up twice.
Yeah.
I think we need to start seeing some variety there.
Yeah.
Let's build some other protagonists up.
Yeah.
I want to see the Cities of Sigmar in there or something, and with a cool big tank or something, You've got a lot of opportunity there to try some new things. I think that's what made AOS. I know we're not supposed to be talking about AOS, but it always gets back. It's what made AOS cool and unique and special to me is that they actually did try things.
Yes.
And to your point, getting safe about stuff, I think is maybe hurting them a little bit.
It's hurting or not. It's not fueling innovation or growth in that regard. It's just kind of, I don't know. It's just kind of again, it's hard to say. No, it did sell well. Short term,
lots of people did well. Yeah,
but I think if you want to gain new people,
but are you creating are you selling some vampire models, or are you creating a AOS hobbyist who keeps doing the AOS hobby, right? Because those are probably two very different things, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. So anyway, I mean, the reason we brought it up is, again, it's going back to why is 40K continuing to be, what
so that was its foundational, I think, in the beginning, what really struck people. And of course it's the 80s. You've got the male power fantasy thing going on, right?
Yeah.
You can't ignore that part to it, where as a young child, I'm being blasted every Saturday morning by He-Man cartoons and Arnold Schwarzenegger's the preeminent action hero.
Yeah.
And you've got these jacked mega men in armor, right? There's that kind of thing that they just nailed.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's something interesting. Had they managed to take something on a galactic level and still make things somewhat, I don't know, close together. I don't know how to even describe it. Even though there's in theory so much going on, but they've found a good way to zoom in and out of different things with their. I mean, it's hard to beat whatever they're pushing 40 years or whatever, 30, 35, 40 years of campaigns and characters coming and dying and planets like there's just so much, plus all the heresy novels and the other like.
That's why it was a perfect marriage of like story and hobby, right? Because like I just like for me,
I think we take for granted though that a lot of this groundwork has like long been set up.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Ages ago, before a bunch of our current day customers were even born. Like,
oh yeah. Yeah. No, for sure.
By the year 2000 or 2005, the game's like almost 20 years old already, and it has like all of this already pre-done and mythology.
Yeah.
A game like AOS is just 10 years old, and you could argue that the one thing it will never have that 40K had is it isn't actually a brand new thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was born from it's fantasy, neo fantasy or whatever, neo Warhammer fantasy.
Yeah,
it borrows so much.
To me, I just look at it as I know all the people are going to get mad at me about this, but like it is just a continuation in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
Of that IP moving along, right? That's like the Warhammer Old World is literally the history of that game. Like it's literally in the history of it.
Yeah.
But I think like you can let's just like end this video by like stretching out to like the key points, because we could obviously talk about this for an hour probably.
Yep.
But like the key points at which like they made some good decisions that like I think have escalated it to the point where it's become so dominant as a when you look at any other type of hobby or industry, to get this kind of market saturation would almost be like impossible, right?
Yeah. Well, you need some.
I think for me one of the key moments, which was kind of a crazy. Was the whole like Black Library experiment, specifically the Horus Heresy.
Yeah.
Like when they decided to write the history of the 40,000 universe, that's to me was a bold decision, and it paid. I think it's paid off probably almost more than like almost any other thing in terms of like building customers.
It's the fact that like you opened the rule book or whatever, and you got the vignette of the Emperor like dying or whatever, or fighting Horus, and Sanguinus is like dead on the stairs or whatever. And they made that model or whatever. It's like a bizarre thing to open a book and feel like this was a real thing that happened, and it was a long time ago, and you're like, wow, this has been around, even though it was only like 5-10 years old, like lit in real time. McVeigh just like made the thing, and they took some cool pictures, but like they found such a good way of I don't know what, like making it feel like that right away, and you were just locked in.
Man, if there was a miniatures Hall of Fame,
yeah, sure,
McVeigh would be like, in the pantheon.
He literally like
he's been everywhere.
Isn't it like just on display in Warhammer World or whatever?
It is. Yeah, no, I saw it. It's cool, but like just the amount of things that guy's done.
You could argue that there's a bit of them not doing that enough. This is going back to AOS briefly. Is they don't do that enough. They don't make enough of these like show these like physical things. It's everything.
No, they've relied so much on the community to do that for them.
And like even in the books, it's like just like digital art and like, and even the army vignettes, it's just like, here's a cool army painted. Yeah. It doesn't have that same like those shots of the two opposing armies and like I don't know. It's not the same.
AOS can never go back to the time
dioramas.
Period when GW would do like plucky upstart things like that to kind of
And also, actually, I'll add this too. Because the Mortal Realms, even though they're like planets or like whole regions, they don't feel like when Cadia falls, you like care about that. But like you don't get the same. I don't know what it is. You just like they're like, oh, there's this wars and stuff happening in the realm of fire, and you're like, so what?
Well, I mean,
like that's something about. Anyway, it's a little too nebulous. I feel like people can kind of understand. Like, you see what's going on in 40K, and
I don't know why that is. It's a hard thing to put your finger on.
It's more visual, actually. You're in your brain. You can be like,
it is more visual.
You can be like, okay, the Imperium owns this like bit of space, and it's got these planets, and they're going, oh, there's Tyranids here, and this and that.
Well, AOS they almost started too abstract.
It's too abstract.
It was too abstract, and then they've been trying to fix that by doing a lot of city stuff. And, but I don't know, like at some point you do need to like get people to buy into it a little bit, and I don't think that like they don't have like this like. So they don't have this great novel series that took off or anything like that. So I don't know what you do on that end to really get people to care about the stories, but they just don't yet, at least, right? And that's the thing is like people genuinely people genuinely care about the 40K stories. They care about the narrative. They care about, and that's the thing that like any other company looking at like, how did this happen? How did this company just like take over the world? How did they? How did this one game like saturate so much? It's like it's because people care about the stories.
Yes.
They care about the.
Yes.
They mean something, right? And you can't get that easily.
No.
You have to work.
You have to build it.
You have to invest in it, which is why like I think every company should do their best to build a world like that's interesting and people care about, right? Like that has to matter from the beginning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe it's got something to do with the fact that like, you know, GW has at its roots it was like, you know, a bunch of guys that loved RPGs and built it up from there, right? Like they got that part of it at least.
Yeah. No, for sure. For sure.
Well, I don't think we solved anything today, but we certainly talked a little bit about why 40K is as big as it is, and I hope you enjoyed our preeminent third video ramble of the week. Thanks for watching till the end. You're a legend, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye.